All right, so the final step here is to just put it all together, right? We've learned a lot of stuff, and so you need to be able to apply this stuff. And depending on any given problem, you might be given different levels or amounts of data. And so one of the main things that can happen here that's bad is just information overload, right? You're given a whole bunch of different spectra. You've got all this information and you just have no idea where to start, right? So you want to start at these simple pieces of data and then work your way up to the more complex pieces of data, right? So the first thing that you want to kind of think about is what could be my formula? And so your formula will either be given, in most problems, you'll be given the formula. If not, then you need to take a look at the mass spec and use the rule of 13 to identify a possible formula, right? Mass spec can also tell you the presence of chlorine, bromine, or odd number of hydrogen or nitrogens, right? But most of the time, you're going to be given the formula, unless it's specifically a mass spec problem. Once you have the formula, the number one thing you want to do is figure out your degrees of unsaturation, right? How many degrees do you have? That's something that'll be very useful. After that, are you given an IR? If so, you need to take a look at your IR and identify any major peaks, right? This can help out a lot. Is there a carbonyl? Is there an alcohol? Is there a carboxylic acid? That kind of thing. After you've taken a look at the IR, the next place that you want to go is the carbon-13 NMR, right? That gives us less information. It's a simpler piece of data to look through, so that's where we want to start. Remember, for carbon NMR, what the main two things we want to take a look at is number one is symmetry. If your molecule has 10 carbons, but you only see 5 peaks, there must be some level of symmetry. If your molecule has 10 peaks and you only see 9 peaks, there's some element of symmetry, right? 2 of those carbons are the same, but you don't know which. And then the number 2 thing you want to look at is the peak location. Do you have a carbonyl, right? If you didn't get the IR, then this is another way to tell whether you have a carbonyl. If you have a bunch of degrees of unsaturation, this is another way to confirm that you have an aromatic compound. Or if you don't have enough degrees of saturation for an aromatic compound, you can use carbon NMR to determine whether you have a ring or an alkene, right? Depending on where these peaks show up. And then if you're given whether they're singlet, quartet, triplet, you can use that information as well. But honestly, for most of our problems, it really won't be needed. And then finally, when we've pulled out all the easy pieces of information, we want to go to our Proton NMR. This is the most complex piece of data that we learned. And so I would save this for last, right? And think about some common motifs that we've seen, right? Think about the location of your compound. Do you see aromatic hydrogens? If so, how many? What does that tell you? Do you see a singlet up at 10? What does that tell you? That kind of thing. Think about the integration. Right? If you again, this is the same thing as the symmetry. If you have 10 hydrogens but only 5 peaks, and they all represent 1 hydrogen, you have some element of symmetry there. So integration / number of peaks. And then finally, the coupling, right? The coupling will help you to piece all of these little different pieces together. And for the coupling, you really want to focus on the patterns that we've seen a lot. If there's an isopropyl, you should be able to look at it and figure it out just like that. Oh, I see an ethyl there. Oh, there's a propyl there. Oh, there's a methyl there. Oh, there's a tert-butyl there. You got to be able to see these things and be able to see them relatively quickly. There's only one way to get kind of decent at this, and that's, of course, practice. So I'll show you some good resources to get some practice. I'll give you some practice problems, and we'll also work through some practice problems in class. But you really got to practice. You can watch as many videos of people solving these things as you want. It's not going to help as much as actually getting in there and solving it yourself.